Hello everyone, it's Shelby here. Welcome back to A Little Literary Love. I'm glad you're with me today because today's video is going to be my July wrap up. I'll be talking about all the books that I read in the latter half of July. This year's just flying by, I swear. But before we get into all the books, please make sure if you like this video that you're hitting the thumbs up button and also subscribing if you haven't already. I post videos every Thursday and Sunday, so you can hit that notification bell to be notified when I post new videos. And yeah, we're here to talk about all the fun romances that I read. I read some really good ones in the latter half of July. I got 6 books done, finished, which is pretty good, especially for how things are going right now, because I feel like my reading has slowed down a bit with how much other stuff I've got going on with my life. I just have not had a ton of extra time for reading. So I've read some really good ones. So we're going to get right into all 6 of those. Starting off with Hear My Heart by Tay Monet. This is a contemporary romance. This is a standalone. Our female main character is deaf and she has a fiance. Her fiance ends up getting in a bad car accident, ends up in a coma. And so she notifies all of his family, and he has a brother that is kind of estranged from him, but she notifies him anyway. And so her fiance's brother comes to town and ends up she ends up inviting him to stay at her place until they find out what is going to happen to her fiance. So in doing so, she ends up getting closer with her fiance's brother, and they start a romance. So it's a romance between her and her fiance's brother. So definitely a little bit more angst in this one. Technically, there is cheating in here, but which this might be a little spoilery, but I feel like it's not a huge spoiler. Her fiance has also cheated on her. So, and her fiance, honestly, he's just not a good guy. He's kind of an asshole, and she deserved so much better. Like his fiance brother, dude, he's perfection. He treats her great, and he like learned sign language for her, which her fiance never did, and just goes out of his way to make sure that she is comfortable and asks her what makes her most comfortable and makes her feel like, you know, worthy. And I loved it. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought it was super cute. I loved the representation in this one. I don't know, the angst of it honestly didn't feel like too angsty to me, given that it is a fiance's brother romance. Then I read Captured by Beverly Jenkins, which I actually have a copy of right up here. This one is a historical romance. This is the 3rd book of the Levesque family series. I have not read the other books of this series, but I picked this one up because it was in one of the prompts for Romanceopoly book challenge, which I will try to link all those challenges down below if you're curious about them. But one of the prompts is to read about a character who is a pirate. So this one, our female main character, she is a slave. This takes place in like the early 1800s or late 1700s, I believe. So she is a slave, and her master, she's owned by this brother and sister, take her on a ship, and the male main character, who is basically a pirate, he commandeers the ship and takes their goods and sees that she's there, and he decides to take her, and we think potentially for himself, but he has ulterior motives. He previously, I'm trying to think of how the best way to describe this. He is biracial, and his father was white and had like a title and owned things, and his father had died and was going to give all of his stuff to this male character, but it ended up going to his white son. And so his father had previously freed a bunch of slaves that had been on his land, but in the will, it went to the other son, and the other son was wanting to get them, well, these slaves back into slavery. So he had previously taken all of these freed slaves and taken them to another location to keep them all safe. So anyway, to make a long story short, that's what he's basically wanting to do with her, our female character of the story, is he's wanting to free her and take her to this like safe place that he has established for all these other freed slaves. But she does not want to do this because she is worried, number one, that like she doesn't really trust him yet, but then number two, she has children that are also in slavery, so she's wanting to get back to them because it's kind of that like devil you know is better than the devil that you don't know, because she knows how things are for her as a slave, and she knows that she can still once a week can go see her children, and she doesn't know if they try to escape and they get like recaptured, what that could mean for her or for her children. So she's very worried about that. So it takes a while for him to kind of break down her walls and get her to trust him into helping, for him to help her free herself and her children. So I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I thought this was a because it deals with such a heavy subject matter with slavery, it was very hard to read at times. But I just feel like this is a very important type of book to read, so that we don't forget our history and forget all of the bad parts of our history. And I just feel like Beverly Jenkins did this in such a way that she had like such good historical facts like woven into her story. And I really enjoyed the characters that she made. I enjoyed the banter between our female main character and our male main character, and it just ended up being such a sweet romance, and I really enjoyed it. Then I read The Poisoner by Ivy Ophelia, which this will turn into a series. I don't know how long this will end up being. Book 2 is supposed to come out in I think a couple of months maybe. But this is a gothic paranormal story. It is dubbed a romance, but I would like to argue that it is not a romance. If you go into this book thinking it is a romance, I think you will be disappointed. If you go into this just thinking it is a very sexy, lots of sexy times, gothic paranormal story, then you might enjoy this one. I listened to this on audiobook, and I really enjoyed listening to it on audiobook because it did have a duet narration, which is great. So this one is about our female main character. This is like a historical type of story as well. This is set in late 1800s. Yes, late 1800s. So she is a poisoner. She poisons and kills men that have done women wrong. And she attracts the attention of our male main character of the story. So our male main character is not human. I think they end up calling him, is it a viper maybe? But he's very similar to a vampire, but they just don't use the word vampire. And he originally is planning on killing her and, eating her, because that's what they do. But he becomes so fascinated by her and what she does with her. She has an apothecary, and so he's kind of like stalking her, and he finds out more about her. And he's being very creepy. And she kind of finds out about this, and they kind of end up forming this very weird relationship where neither one of them really like each other. In fact, like I would feel like this is a true like enemies to lovers story, because he eventually wants to kill her and she is trying to find a way to kill him, but he's immune to a lot of things. So she has this like very scientific brain. And so they form this relationship of sorts so that she can study him and learn more about him. So it's just a very strange dynamic. This does not end in an HEA. So again, I would not call this a romance. However, I could see where this ends up becoming a romance potentially in book 2, with how things are left off at the end of this one. So I don't know. There were parts of this that I was just like, I don't really know how I'm feeling about it. There's lots of death and gore in here, lots of sexy times. It was just a very strange but also unique story, and it really captured me and fascinated me. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really am looking forward to reading the second book of this series. I think it's going to be called The Arachnid. And like I said, I could see this potentially becoming a romance at some point, maybe in book 2, but it's not there quite yet. Then I read Miss V's Hot Girl Summer by A.H. Cunningham. This is a contemporary romance. It's standalone. I read another A.H. Cunningham at the beginning of the month, and that one I thought was just kind of okay. So I wanted to give this author another try. I had the audiobook for this story, so I really enjoyed this one. This one is our female main character. She is tricked by her twin sons. They think she works too much, and they also don't approve of the man that she's dating. She's dating this guy that is a wealthy business person, but likes to remind her that they're not exclusive, and so he's seeing other people. But she's dating him even though he's really boring, because she feels like this is what she is supposed to have as a 35-year-old mother. She used to be kind of more of a partier and realized that she couldn't do that as much with her being a mother. So she just feels like she's not supposed to want or desire certain things. So her sons don't like this guy for her, and they end up tricking her into going on this vacation and end up having to stay with their coach, who they think is a better match for her. Now this man is 10 years younger than her, so she's very wary. They get along really well, but he's younger than her, so she feels like she is not supposed to want to be with him. But he finds her very attractive, and he kind of shows her that she deserves whatever she wants. So it turns out to be their romance. I give this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. It was fun, and it was super steamy and spicy, and I honestly just really loved seeing a mother type figure in a romance. She is full figured with all of the stretch marks, and seeing this younger man just absolutely obsessed with her and thinking that she is the most gorgeous thing that he has ever seen. I loved seeing him dote on her. The character growth for both of them in the story was great. It was a very fun romance. I enjoyed it. Then this one I don't really have too much to talk about. Like, I don't really know how to describe this. I read the complete poems of Safo. And this was just a poetry collection. I listened to this on audio, and it took like less than an hour to listen to this. So this was just a bunch of poetry that the poet Safo wrote. This is actually where we get the word sapphic from, because she loved women. So that's basically what her poems are about, is about her thinking women are beautiful and like lusting after all of these women. So I didn't really know how to rate this. I gave this one 3 stars because it was poetry. Like, it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it, but it's definitely not something that's like super wowing me. So I don't know. I give it 3 stars. And then the last book that I read for July is going to be Living Legend by Ali Shante. This is it's hard for me to remember what is the differences between paranormal romance and fantasy romance. So it's one of those. This is another enemies to lovers story. This is about our male main character is an angel, and our female main character is a demon. And they are tasked with working together because a demon has gotten into the angel realm, and they're trying to figure out how that happened and what the plan is, because they think that Lilith who rules over purgatory has got some designs and plans to take over the angel realm. So they're tasked together with trying to figure out the mystery of what's happening. And of course, they're very attracted to one another. They end up having some very steamy, sexy times together. This is the first of a trilogy, so it does kind of end on, I mean, a little bit of a cliffhanger, sort of. I gave this one 4 stars. I enjoyed the storyline. I really enjoyed our female main character, and I loved that she stood up for herself and stood up against our angel main character. There's a part, and I'm going to try not to spoil anything, but there's a part in the book where like he is like wanting them to be together, but he like his thought process is thinking that the only way they can be together is for her to change and to change who she is. And she's like, flat stop, no, if you can't take me for how I am, then this is not going to work. And I just loved that. I just thought that was great. So I do plan on continuing the series. It might just take me a minute to get to the next books because I have so many other books that I'm wanting to try to get in right now, because I have a bunch of different pre-orders that are closing for the book conventions that I'm going to. So that is kind of my priority at the moment. But I do want to continue the series because I did really enjoy this first book. So that is it for all of the books that I read in July. Real quickly, if you're still here, you know, cool. I was going to go over just briefly like general like stats for my month, but if you don't care about that, you can totally just end the video now. Leave a comment with some of the books that you've been enjoying this month. But overall, I read 10 books in July, which again is pretty good. I believe Honeycut was my only 5-star that I read. I did technically meet my goal for reading a nonfiction because I read that poetry book. I did definitely read 3 books by BIPOC authors. I think I ended up reading 6. I think I read 6, which is great. That's probably like the best that I've done in any of the months. Read 1 book from my shelves. I did, well, Honeycut. I read Honeycut, so that met. Read 1 LGBTQ relationship. I read several LGBTQ relationships. So I did great with that. And then read 3 books from KU. I read 1. I'm gonna have to work on that for next month because the whole reason I put that as a goal to read 3 books from KU is because since I'm paying into it, I want it to be worth it for me. And so like 3 books would equal about what I'm paying for monthly for KU. So I definitely need to read more KU books next month. But so that is going to be the end of this video. If you like this, again, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing if you haven't already. Again, comment what are some of the books that you enjoyed reading in July. And otherwise, excuse me, that'll be it for this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.